Oh my goodness! Can you believe it? It's time for the slope review. All right, the first section of our slope review, as always, is graphing vocabulary. Is vocabulary. So I'm going to run you through the vocab words that I'm going to be using throughout this study session. The first word is our x-axis. Remember, our x-axis is our horizontal line on our graph. I will be speaking to the x-axis a lot today. Our second vocab word is our y-axis, as you could have probably guessed. Our y moves vertical, up and down. It helps separate the coordinate planes, and it crosses the x-axis. Next, we have an ordered pair. This will be the first part of our study session. An ordered pair identifies the location of a point. It is written, which is important, and I'll keep the same colors, x first and y second. Like I said, we'll be going through that in much more detail in a second. Finally, we have a linear equation. A linear equation is just an equation that has all the solutions on the same line. All of the equations we'll be using today are linear equations, and all of your points will line up. All right, let's practice some ordered pairs. I'm going to go through this very quickly today because you have had a lot of this since elementary school, so I don't want to waste your time. But if you have any extra questions when I get through this, please come see me, and I'm happy to work through it with you. I will demonstrate how to find the ordered pair of point A. Remember, your ordered pairs, we write x first, how much it goes back and forth, and then y second. Looking at point A, which is right here, it does not move back and forth at all. It stays right on that 0 line, so the x is 0. But it does go up 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. So my y is 3. I would like you to pause the recording now and complete B through F. All right, moving through quickly, and I will keep them color coordinated for you. X being in red, Y being in green. For B, it moves over. Our point moves over 1, 2, 3, 4. That is my X. And my Y, it moves up 1 spot. My ordered pair is 4, 1. For C, it moves over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it moves up 1, 2, 3, 4. My ordered pair is 5, 4. For D, it moves over. My X moves over 1. And it does not move up vertically at all. So it is still on the X line, which means my Y is 0. E moves over 2 and up 2. So it is 2, 2. And F, it moves over 3. Get to that color. It moves over 3 and up 4. Those are your ordered pairs. Like I said, I moved through it quickly, but if you have any questions, please come see me. The next part of the study session that's going to be important that we go through is slope. We're going to be talking about slope a lot coming up on this exam. So all slope is it's the rate of change from one point to another. It tells us how quickly a line is rising or falling. So if I have a line like this, I have a couple points on it. All slope is going to tell me is how steep that line is, how quickly it's rising or falling. There are a couple types of slope. What I want you to remember when looking at slope is we read a book left to right. We are going to read slope in the exact same way. So my first example of slope is positive. This is a positive trend line right here. The reason I know it's positive is if I make 2 points on the line, and I look, and when I read left to right, the line is moving up. So it is positive since it's moving up left to right. If you look at my example that is beneath, this is a negative slope because when looking at the line, if I read left to right, like a book, it is moving down left to right. There are two more examples in which you need to know. The first one is that if a line is horizontal, the slope is 0. Here is an example of that. The line does not change at all. The slope is 0. If the line is vertical, moving up and down, we call it an undefined, or you can call it a no slope. Horizontal is 0, up and down is no slope. In the next part of our review, we're actually going to find slope. You'll notice I gave you two ordered pairs. This is ordered pair 1, and this is ordered pair 2. I'll make sure that they're color-coded for you. We start by finding slope by graphing out these two ordered pairs. So for the first one, you'll remember it is x first and then y. So, and I'll keep this one in green for you to make sure it's color-coded. That means we go over 0 and we go down 2. That's what negative means. Up is positive, down is negative. You'll see my first ordered pair in green on the graph. My second ordered pair is 4x, so go over 4 and up 2. There is my second ordered pair. In order to find slope, we first start by putting in my line. There's my line that goes through the 2 points. It's a linear line, meaning it goes straight. The important thing to remember with slope is that slope is rise over run, or up and down over left and right. So we find the rise. We read our graphs left to right just like we read a book. So we're going to start on this left point right there. In order to get from this point to this top one up here, we have to rise 1, 2, 3, 4. My rise is 4. We have to run, go over 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 over 4, or when reduced, my slope is 1. That is one way to do it. Also, you probably noticed that there is an equation, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. I'm not going to spend very much time on this equation, but you will see this again in high school. All this means is you take your second y. So my y is my second one. My second y is 2 right there. And I minus it minus my first y. My y from my first order pair is negative 2. I put that over my second x, which is 4. And I minus that by my first x, which is 0. Two negatives next to each other, make it both pluses. That's 4. 4 minus 0 is 4. Again, you'll see these two answers match up. We generally use those for finding slope of bigger numbers. You probably won't need to use these on that test, that equation, but you will definitely see it again, and some people like to use it. Let's try this again. You'll see my ordered pairs down below. I would like for you to pause it and to find the slope. Let's begin by graphing our ordered pairs. There's our first one, and here is our second one. My first ordered pair is you go over 0 and down, or excuse me, up 2, since it's a positive 2. There's number 1. Number 2, I go over 4 and down, whoops. I forgot my y. You go over 4 and you go down 1. There is my line right there. Now remember, you read graphs from left to right. So I'm actually falling from point to point. I go down 1, 2, 3. Down 3, when I go down it's negative. And I go over 1, 2, 3. When I reduce that, negative 3 over 3 is equal to a negative 1 slope. I will not show you the equation for that one, but if you did the equation, you will get the same answer. Let's try one last one. Please pause your recording now, graph them out, and find the slope. My first point is at negative 1, 4, which is down 1 over 4. My second point is at 3, negative 3, which I'm actually going to keep the same color, which is up 3 over 3. And there is my line right there. Again, we read from left to right, so we start on the left. From there to there, I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, down 4, and I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That cannot be reduced. Negative 4/7 should be your answer. That was finding slope. Now we're going to work on writing equations. Pretty soon we're going to put all these together, which you'll need to for the test, but I'm going to break it down nice and easy for you. The equation you need to remember is y equals mx plus b. You'll hear me say that a lot, and I'll get into what that means. The m stands for the slope. Your slope always goes next to x. Whenever you are graphing an equation out or creating an equation, your slope always goes next to x, and in this equation, m stands for slope. Your b is your y-intercept. M and b don't really make sense for the letters. It's just one of those things you have to memorize. This first one I will show you how to do. So again, all my equations start y equals. We put the slope, we take the slope and we put it in for m, and it goes next to x, and then my y-intercept is what remains. So my equation is y equals 4x minus 3. Again, my slope goes in and goes next to x, and then plus or minus a number is my y-intercept. I would like for you to pause your recording and please create equations for number 2 and 3. For number 2, if my slope is negative 3 and my y-intercept is 7, it should be y equals 3x plus, negative 3x plus 7. The negative 3 goes next to the x, and since it is a positive 7, we plus 7. For number 3, you could have two possible answers. Y equals 0x plus 5, or the more preferred method is y equals 5. It's more preferred because if something's 0, we generally don't want to include it into the equation. That is how you create slope-intercept equations. Please come see me if you have any questions. Now that we know how to write equations, we're going to work on actually constructing the equations. You will see on the left-hand side, we have our ordered pair, which I already graphed out for you. Next, we have the m, which stands for slope, the b, which represents y-intercept, and we're going to put all of it together. So we're going to start in our first dot, and we are going to see what our slope is. Starting on my first smiley face, because graphing is fun and happy, we are going to move up 1, 2, 3. My rise is 3. I move over 1. My slope is 3 over 1. My y-intercept, which we haven't really talked about yet, is where the line crosses the y-axis. I put the y-axis in green for you right there. You'll notice that my line crosses the y-axis on down 1, 2, negative 2. My y-intercept is negative 2. My equation, which we just constructed, you'll remember, is y equals mx plus b. My m is my 3 over 1 x, and then my b is negative 2. That is my equation. What I would prefer you do instead of over 1 is just plain 3. Y equals 3x minus 2. That is how I construct an equation. I get my slope, I get my y-intercept, and I put it all together. I would like for you to complete this one. Please pause your recording now. Again, we start on our left dot because we read from left to right. I am going to move down 1. My rise is negative 1 since I'm going down. My run is over 1, 2, 3, 4. My slope is negative 1/4. My y-intercept, there's my y-axis. It crosses the y-axis at positive 3. My equation is y equals negative 1/4 x plus 3. Let's try one more. Go ahead. On this one, you'll notice my line does not slope at all. There's no rise. So it's 0 over 1, 2, 3, 4. But we know anything over 0 or under 0 is 0 slope. My y-intercept is, it crosses the y at positive 2. So for my equation, I could have y equals 0 over 4x plus 2. But what I would prefer you doing, since it is a 0, we don't need to put anything. So we just use y and the plus 2. That is the preferred method for that particular example. Our final piece of this review in order to do well on the quiz is to learn how to, given the equation, create a linear, given a linear equation, being able to create a graph. My equation is on the left, y equals 3x minus 2. Whenever we're graphing, always, always, always start at the y-intercept. Always. That means start with what is not attached to x. You'll notice what is not attached to x is negative 2. Since it's negative 2, I'm going to put that negative 2. My first point goes on the y line at negative 2. Now, if there is nothing under a number, 3, but we need to rise over 1, or rise over 1 fraction, we know if there's nothing over it, it goes over 1. So what 3 over 1 attached to slope just means I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1. There's my next point. I like to do that twice to make sure I have a good line. So from this point right here, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, over 1. Once I have that, I draw my line, and that is poorly drawn, but you can see that I have a line-ish. Here is your next equation to graph out. Please pause your recording and go ahead. Again, make sure our first dot goes on the y-intercept. It is positive 4 on the y. 1 over 3 means I rise 1 and go over 1, 2, 3. And I rise 1 and go over 1, 2, 3. Again, I have a line. Last one of the day. Go ahead. My y-intercept is plus 2. Now, we spoke about this in class, but this is a good reminder. If I have a negative x, that means if there's nothing next to the x, it's a 1. That means there's one x there. So I have a negative 1, and as we know, if there's nothing underneath, it's a 1. So I have negative 1 over 1, which means negative 1, I go down 1 and over 1. I go down 1 and over 1. When I do that, I have a nice line right there. That was your slope review. I hope you had as much fun as I did. If you need any questions, if you have any questions or need anything, there is my information. I hope that you have a spectacular day.